Indeed, it is exceedingly rare for a prominent Washington politician to refuse or refrain from engaging in partisan politics, as we all know. It is even more rare for a prominent Washington politician to actually make a sincere effort to bridge the gap, to combat the divisiveness in this nation. And I think we all, speaking for veterans and non-veterans alike, we all salute you in your sincere efforts to unify this divided country. What I would like, because we know, the intentions can be there, but how do you see the media's role, both the mainstream as well as the alternative media? How do you see the media's role in backing you up in this effort to unify this country?
Thank you. The corporate media, unfortunately, has well, look, they're driven by profits. They're driven by profits. So, we have, a media that is supposed to be providing us with the news, but the news has become a part of the profit-bearing portion of their business plan, rather than separating the entertainment from the news. So, if you look at what drives up ratings, it's conflict, it's, the buzzwords, and it's the sound bites, and it's all this stuff that unfortunately is part of the problem that is tearing us apart. So we're not getting any backup there, unfortunately. As far as new media or alternative media, it depends on where you go. I think some are contributing to having a good discourse and dialogue, where you have some platforms where they're not afraid to bring people together who may have differing views and differing opinions, and actually have a good debate, healthy debate. And maybe they end up agreeing at the end of it, maybe they don't. But I think all of us feel better having maybe listened or being party to that conversation. I think that's what we need more of. So even as I get, the hypocrisy just astounds me, because, I'll go and do interviews on Fox News, I'll do interviews on CNN, MSNBC, I'll do interviews on a whole variety of podcasts or YouTube shows, and I'll get criticized for going on Fox News or talking to Republicans or reaching out to independents. But at the same time, from the same people in the media, the same people in the political establishment, they say, well, gosh, how are we going to win people over to support our ideas as Democrats? How are we going to beat Donald Trump unless we do that? So, I'll tell you, yes, I'm running for president to defeat Donald Trump, but our mission is much bigger than that. Our mission is much bigger than that. Our mission is to bridge these divides, to bring people together so that we can do the people's work. This cannot be about partisan politics, because the problems that have needed solving for so long have become the casualties of the hyper-partisanship in Washington that are leaving people behind, struggling to live paycheck to paycheck. Parents who can't afford the insulin for their kids who have diabetes. People who are living on limited income because they're retirees and relying on Social Security and can't afford to keep a roof over their head. There are so many of these issues that we face that we hear politicians talking about over and over and over and over again. But what is actually being done to bridge that divide? Look, the House and the Senate constantly changes hands, right? So Democrat, Republican, back and forth, back and forth. The problem is you have leaders in both parties who are only looking to the next election, rather than immediately after election day saying, okay, let's come together. Let's have a meeting. Leaders from both parties, chairmen from both parties, members of Congress saying, hey, how can we come together so we can make sure that Social Security is sufficient in this rising cost of living that we are dealing with? How can we make sure that we are providing that quality health care for everybody? There's a long laundry list of issues. We cannot do it if we're only focused on putting one team's interests ahead of the other. I want to tell a short story on how I started to develop those relationships and found a way to do this outreach immediately after I got elected as a member of Congress in 2012. I thought of the fact that I'm coming in as a freshman Democrat with a Republican majority, being told don't even try to pass a bill through Congress because Republicans won't let you do it. So I was thinking, okay, there's no way I'm going to sit around and do nothing. I needed to find a way to be able to get to know and to work with my colleagues in Congress. So I started thinking about what's the one thing that I know, maybe not all, but most of us have in common, the common language, universal language of food. You guys know what I'm talking about here? Yeah. So I made a call to my mother in Hawaii. She makes incredible macadamia nut toffee. And I asked if she would make 434 boxes of toffee for every single member of Congress. Small thing, no big deal, right? She said, oh yeah, okay, great. I think that's an awesome idea. I'm in. I said, I'm not done. I've got one more favor to ask. I asked if she would make another 435 bigger boxes of toffee for the staff of every member of Congress. To make sure we get those phone calls returned, you know what I mean? And she paused just for a moment. I could tell she was thinking like, okay, I'm gonna have to buy this many more pounds of macadamia nuts and all of this. But she said, I think that's a great idea. So she's in Hawaii. She starts chopping the mac nuts, stirring 2 pots of toffee at one time, pouring it. My dad is the self-appointed quality control guy who took a slice out of every single pan just to make sure it was okay. I was in DC while they were doing this, handwriting personal notes to every single one of my new colleagues, learning more about them in the process, and signing each one just saying, I look forward to serving alongside you. What was incredible to me was how quickly I got a response. Once we started delivering these little gifts of aloha, when we're on the House floor for votes, which is the only time we're all in the same physical space together at the same time, there were Republicans, high-ranking, serving as chairmen of powerful committees, people from other parts of the country or other committees, people who I wouldn't normally get to know at all, making that long walk from the Republican side to the Democratic side, looking for me, finding me, and just saying thank you. Thank you. I ate all the toffee. I need more to take home to my family this weekend. And then, most importantly, saying, tell me what's going on in your district in Hawaii. Tell me what your constituents are most concerned about. I serve on this committee or that committee, or I've got a lot of experience or background in this area or that area. Let's figure out a way to work together. That simple, small gesture of reaching out with respect, with aloha. Not saying, well, I'm only going to give it to these guys because I think they're cool or they'll agree with me or they're on my team. No. Reaching out with respect to every single one of these elected leaders in Congress. Let's serve together. That laid a foundation that made it possible for me to be effective, to serve my constituents, to serve our country, to pass the very first bill that I introduced into Congress in a record period of time, getting it passed through both houses and signed into law by President Obama in the first year that I was in office. To pass important amendments in different bills, for example, relating to Native Hawaiian education, something that people said Republicans would never allow to be passed. But when my amendment came up for a vote, and Republicans were told that they should vote against the Gabbard Amendment to reauthorize the Native Hawaiian Education Act, because I had established those relationships with my colleagues that started with toffee, yes, they answered my phone calls. They texted me or found me on the House floor or stopped me in the halls to say, hey, they're telling us to vote against your amendment. Tell me why I should vote for it. So I had the opportunity to share with them why this was important to kids, not only in Hawaii, but across the country. What happened as a result? We won. That amendment got passed with an overwhelming vote of support. But making progress on these issues, yes, it takes work. It requires us to be able to get to know each other. But this is only possible, fighting for equality, fighting for an end to discrimination for our LGBTQ Americans, fighting for criminal justice reform, fighting to protect our environment against the threat of climate change. All of these things require us to be able to build these bridges, yes, as leaders in Congress, but also within our own communities. To not be afraid to reach out to somebody and say, okay, well, you voted for Trump, maybe I voted for Bernie Sanders. Let's have a conversation.